The hall was alive with laughter, clinking glasses, and the soft hum of conversation, but inside, Sarah couldn't hear any of it. At 28, with her heart bold and her mind sharp, she had never been one to settle. She had spent years building a life of independence and dignity, and now, dressed in a shimmering white gown, she faced a moment that would test every ounce of courage she had. Her fiancé, Armand, stood at the altar, smiling nervously, a small velvet box in his hand. Sarah's eyes fell on it, and her stomach twisted. The ring was beautiful in its own way, but cheap, far below the promise she had expected from him. "Can I do this?" she whispered under her breath, her palms sweaty, her mind racing. "Do I speak now, or will I regret it for the rest of my life? Can love survive when the first symbol of it feels like a lie?" Her pulse thundered in her ears as she saw the eyes of hundreds of guests on her, waiting for her to take the final step. Should she risk shattering the moment? Should she expose the truth that had been hidden behind Armand's polite smiles and charming words? And more importantly, what would she uncover if she demanded honesty now? The sunlight streamed through the stained glass of the grand wedding hall, scattering colors across the polished marble floor. It painted the room in red, gold, and violet streaks that danced on the guests' eager faces. The air smelled of roses and fresh perfume, mingling with the faint hint of expensive candles. Laughter bubbled from the children running between tables, and servers moved quickly, balancing silver trays of sparkling drinks. But in the midst of this beauty, tension hummed like a hidden chord under a symphony. Sarah's gaze swept across the hall. Her mother sat stiffly in the front row, trying to mask her nervousness with a forced smile. Her younger brother, Raza, fidgeted with the napkin on his lap, giving her subtle winks that spoke of shared secrets and unspoken warnings. Friends whispered behind their hands, some noting the unusual glitter on Armand's hand, too faint, too thin, too fragile. And then, amidst the music and chatter, Sarah noticed something strange. One of the waiters dropped a tray, and instead of immediately apologizing, he whispered urgently to another server and gestured toward the entrance. A sudden shiver ran down her spine. Something was off. Armand's hand trembled slightly as he opened the small box. Sarah's eyes locked on the ring, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of fear in his usually confident gaze. The hall fell into a hush, the kind that happens when everyone senses that something important is about to unfold. Sarah's mind raced. She had promised herself she would never be fooled by appearances, never accept false gestures of love. Her voice, usually calm and collected, felt like it was trapped somewhere in her chest, screaming for release. She stepped forward, and the hall seemed to shrink around her. Every eye was on her, every heartbeat echoing in her ears. "Armand," she said, her voice clear but trembling with emotion. I cannot wear this ring." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some guests whispered in shock. Her mother's hand flew to her mouth. Armand's face froze, his charming smile replaced by an expression Sarah had never seen before, panic, almost desperation. "But Sarah, it's just a ring," he stammered, his voice cracking. "It doesn't matter what." "No," she interrupted, her eyes blazing. "It matters. It matters a lot." Her gaze swept across the room, daring anyone to challenge her, daring Armand to lie. "I deserve honesty, respect, and sincerity. If this ring is cheap, then what does it say about everything else? About your promises?" A stunned silence fell. Even the music seemed to stop, holding its breath as the tension thickened. Sarah's friends stared, unsure whether to intervene or cheer her courage. Her brother Raza clenched his fists, nodding slightly as if to say, "You're right. Don't back down." Then Armand's hand shot out, trying to close the box. "Sarah, please, just accept it. You'll understand later." But Sarah shook her head. Something deep in her gut told her that this was not just about a ring. There was a secret here, one that Armand had tried to hide. Her eyes narrowed, and for the first time, she allowed herself to confront the fear of the unknown. "I will not wear this," she said firmly. "And I will not marry someone who thinks love can be measured in gold and carats. Tell me the truth, Armand. What are you hiding?" The guests murmured nervously. Some exchanged worried glances, while others leaned in, sensing the drama unfolding. Armand's face paled, and for a fleeting moment, he seemed ready to run. But then he straightened, his charming smile returning, just a little too forced, a little too sharp. "Sarah," he began, his voice low, "there's something you don't know. Something I should have told you a long time ago." Sarah's heart pounded. The hall seemed to hold its breath. What could be so important that he had risked this perfect day to hide it? And as she stared into Armand's eyes, she realized that whatever truth was about to be revealed could change everything: the wedding, their families, their lives, and even the people around them. Was this just a lie about a ring? Or was it something much bigger, something that would shatter everything she thought she knew about Armand and possibly herself? Could love survive the truth when it came like a storm, sudden and unforgiving? And more importantly, could Sarah make the right choice, or would she regret her courage forever? The room waited. The music had stopped. The sunlight caught the edges of the small velvet box, glinting like a warning. And Sarah, standing tall in her gown, prepared to confront the secret that could ruin everything or set them free. The sunlight no longer felt warm and inviting. It seemed sharper, almost accusing, as if it had come to witness the unfolding drama. Guests shifted in their seats, whispers rising into a low, uneasy murmur that made the hall feel smaller and heavier. Sarah's heart pounded, her hands gripping the folds of her gown. She could hear the faint flutter of her mother's heartbeat from across the aisle, see the rigid tension in Roz's posture. All eyes were on her, waiting for her next move. And then, Armand spoke, slowly, carefully, each word weighed down with meaning. "There's something about my family," he said, his charming facade cracking for the first time. "Something you weren't told. Something that—" "Just tell me," Sarah demanded, her voice sharp but steady. Her eyes searched his, trying to read the truth hidden behind the practiced smile. "No more lies, no more hiding. I deserve to know." Armand swallowed hard. The small box containing the ring trembled in his hand. He glanced at the crowd, as if expecting someone to intervene, to stop the inevitable truth from spilling into the open. But no one moved. Every face reflected a mixture of curiosity, judgment, and fear of scandal. "My family, we've made mistakes," he said finally, his voice low, almost breaking. "Mistakes that affect more than just me. Mistakes that could ruin this wedding, ruin your life if you're not careful." A wave of silence fell, so heavy it seemed to press down on everyone. Guests stared, unsure whether to gasp or remain frozen. Sarah felt her stomach twist. Mistakes? What kind of mistakes? Was it money? Business? Or something far worse? "Tell me," she whispered, taking a step closer. "I need to know now. Don't hold back, Armand." He hesitated, then sighed, finally surrendering. "My father, he's involved in something illegal. Not just small time, not just gambling or taxes. Something that could destroy lives. And I wanted to protect you from it. I thought I could separate myself from it, but now it's too late. They found out I'm getting married, and they want me to bring you into it, Sarah. They expect certain things from you." The words hit Sarah like a thunderclap. The crowd's murmur rose into shocked exclamations. Her mother gasped and covered her mouth. Roz's hand clenched into a fist at his side, his eyes narrowing as he stared at Armand with disbelief. "And the ring?" Sarah asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Was it part of this?" Armand looked down, ashamed. "I wanted to buy you something beautiful, something that would show my love, but I didn't have the freedom. Everything my family controls, they decide, even gifts, even money. I thought if I gave you this, you might understand, but I see now, it's not enough. It never will be enough." The hall felt suddenly colder. Guests shifted uncomfortably, some whispering about scandals and secrets, others about the bride's courage. Sarah's heart raced. She realized then that this was bigger than a ring. Bigger than a wedding. Bigger than the moment everyone had been waiting for. This was about control, honesty, and the choices she would have to make, not just for herself, but for everyone around her. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. "Armand," she said slowly, carefully. "I don't care about your father. I don't care about his mistakes. I care about you, yes, but I also care about trust. About honesty. You should have told me the truth from the beginning. You made a choice to hide it, and now we're at a crossroads. Armand looked at her, eyes wide, almost pleading. Sarah, I love you. I wanted. You wanted what? She interrupted, stepping closer, her voice firm. To protect me from the truth? Or to protect yourself? Because now, I have to decide, do I walk away and keep my dignity, or do I step into a world I don't understand, a world that could destroy me? And can I ever truly trust you again if the first test is already this hard? The room grew tense. Some guests shifted uncomfortably, trying to hide their shock, while others leaned forward, drawn to the drama like moths to flame. The orchestra stopped playing entirely, leaving only the soft hum of murmurs and the distant sound of a dropped fork echoing in the hall. Sarah's mother looked like she was about to cry, but instead, she simply shook her head in silent disapproval. Armand's voice broke the silence. I can prove I love you. I can show you that my intentions are real. I don't want to lose you, Sarah. Please, give me a chance to fix this. Sarah's mind spun. Every instinct screamed at her to turn away, to run from the chaos and the lies. But another part of her, the part that had fought for herself her entire life, refused to back down. She realized that this moment was about more than love or family secrets. It was about courage, about making the right choice even when the consequences were terrifying. Slowly, she stepped back, her gaze sweeping across the stunned faces of the guests. I will not wear the ring, and I will not marry a man who hides his life from me. But I am willing to listen, Armand. If you are honest, if you show me the truth without hiding, then perhaps we can find a way forward. But the choice is yours, not mine. Armand's eyes filled with tears. The small velvet box slipped from his trembling fingers, clattering to the floor. He bent down, picked it up, and looked at Sarah as if his entire world depended on her next move. And in that instant, Sarah knew that whatever choice he made now would change everything, not just for them, but for everyone in the hall. The whispers grew louder. Phones were raised, capturing every moment. Guests leaned in closer, hungry for the drama. And somewhere in the shadows, a figure watched quietly, unnoticed, their expression unreadable. Who was that? And why did their presence feel threatening? Sarah's eyes flicked toward the stranger, her heart skipping a beat. Something told her that this wedding was no longer just about love or family secrets. It had become a stage for hidden agendas, dangerous choices, and a truth that might shatter more than just the engagement. Would Armand finally reveal everything? Could Sarah trust him after this? And what did that silent figure in the corner know? What role would they play in the chaos that was about to unfold? The hall held its breath. And Sarah, standing tall in her gown, braced herself for a storm she could no longer avoid. The hall had fallen into an uneasy stillness, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Guests exchanged glances, their whispers now edged with fear and anticipation. The soft rays of sunlight streaming through the stained glass painted moving patterns on the marble floor, but it felt like the colors themselves were warning everyone that something dangerous was about to unfold. Sarah's eyes remained locked on the stranger in the shadows, a tall figure, dressed in black, who had somehow managed to slip unnoticed into the room. Her pulse quickened. There was something familiar about the way the stranger stood, silent but observant, as though they had been waiting for this precise moment. A flicker of recognition sparked in Sarah's mind, but before she could place it, the stranger moved with quiet purpose toward the front of the hall. Armand, still holding the fallen velvet box, seemed oblivious to the new presence. He was focused entirely on Sarah, his expression desperate. Please, I can explain everything, he said, his voice trembling. Everything about my family, the past. I can make it right. Sarah's gaze shifted between him and the approaching figure. Her instincts screamed danger. Something about this wedding, something about Armand's secrets, was far larger than she had imagined. She noticed subtle details now, the anxious way some of the older guests were glancing toward the entrances, the slight tension in the waiters' movements, and the unmistakable shadow that lingered in the far corner, unmoving, yet watching with intent. The stranger finally stepped into the light. The hall seemed to grow colder at their presence. They were a woman, mid-30s, sharp eyes, perfectly composed, carrying an air of authority. She scanned the room slowly, her gaze lingering on Armand for a heartbeat too long. When her eyes met Sarah's, a chill ran down Sarah's spine. There was recognition in those eyes too, an unspoken warning. "Who are you?" Sarah asked, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. The woman smiled faintly, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Let's just say, someone who knows more about your fiancé than you ever could." A collective gasp went through the room. Armand stiffened, his charm gone, replaced by raw panic. What are you doing here?" he stammered. The woman's voice cut through the tension like steel. "I'm here because it's time the truth comes out. Not just for you, Sarah, but for everyone in this hall. The man you're about to marry is not who he claims to be." Sarah's heart raced. She had already known something was wrong, but hearing it aloud, from a stranger, made it feel terrifyingly real. "Explain," she demanded, her hands gripping the folds of her gown. "Tell me the truth." The woman stepped closer. Her presence seemed to command the room, even the murmuring guests went silent. "Armand's family is involved in matters far darker than you imagine: illegal businesses, fraud, and dealings that could put innocent people in danger. He tried to protect you from it, yes, but he is still tied to them. You need to know this before it's too late." Armand's face contorted with frustration and desperation. "Sarah, please. Don't listen to her. She's exaggerating, she wants to ruin this moment." But Sarah could see the cracks in his voice, the way his hands shook even as he tried to mask it. The stranger, with cold precision, laid a folder on a nearby table. Photos, documents, and papers spilled across the surface, evidence of Armand's family dealings. Gasps and murmurs erupted from the crowd. Even Sarah's mother leaned forward, eyes wide with shock. Sarah's mind raced. Each photo, each paper, told a story she hadn't expected. There were bank statements, meetings with shady figures, and business contracts that hinted at manipulation and deceit. She realized then that the cheap ring had been a symptom of a far larger problem, a world of lies and control that Armand had been trying to shield her from. Her eyes met Armand's again. "Is this true?" she asked, her voice trembling but firm. "Did you know about all of this?" Armand looked down, unable to meet her gaze. "Yes," he whispered. "I knew. I wanted to protect you, to keep you away from all of it. I thought if I handled it carefully, it wouldn't touch you. I was wrong. I never meant to lie, Sarah, not to you. I love you." Sarah's breath caught. Love, but at what cost? She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Every instinct screamed at her to walk away, yet another part of her, the part that had always fought for truth and justice, urged her to stay, to demand answers, to uncover the full story. The stranger's gaze softened slightly, though it remained serious. "This is your choice now, Sarah. You can leave, or you can stay and face the truth alongside him. But understand this, choosing to stay may change your life forever." Sarah looked around the room. Guests were frozen, some recording videos, others whispering frantically. The sunlight through the stained glass no longer seemed beautiful, it felt like a spotlight on every secret that had been hidden. She could hear her own heartbeat, loud and insistent, reminding her that the next step was hers alone. And then, she noticed it, a small detail that made her stomach drop. Hidden in the corner, behind a decorative pillar, a man with a sharp suit and darker eyes than anyone else, was watching them all. Not just watching Armand or Sarah, but the documents, the reactions, the fear. His presence felt deliberate, threatening, and Sarah sensed that he had an agenda far beyond family secrets. Who was he? Was he part of Armand's family, or was he someone else entirely? And what would he do if he realized the truth was slipping out of control? Sarah's mind raced. Every choice seemed dangerous, every decision a potential trap. But she knew one thing: she could no longer pretend everything was normal. This wedding, this ring, this man she loved, they were all part of a web of lies that could either be untangled or destroy her completely. Her voice, steady and unflinching, broke the silence. "Armand," she said, "if we are going to face this, I need everything. No more hiding. No more lies. And whoever you are, stranger, tell me everything you know. I need to understand the whole story before I make the next choice. The stranger nodded slightly, her eyes scanning the hall once more before focusing back on Sarah. Then be prepared, she said softly. Because the truth is far more dangerous than any of you can imagine. A sudden knock at the hall's massive doors made everyone jump. All eyes turned toward the entrance. The sound was deliberate, echoing through the room like a countdown. Sarah's pulse raced faster. Something or someone was coming. And whatever it was, it would force them all to act before the secrets could remain hidden any longer. The knock at the hall's massive doors echoed like a drumbeat, sharp and deliberate, sending a wave of panic through the gathered guests. Conversations froze mid-sentence, and the laughter that had once filled the room vanished completely. Even the soft sunlight seemed muted, casting long shadows that made the hall feel colder, darker, more dangerous. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. Every instinct screamed that this was no ordinary visitor. Armand's hands trembled slightly as he straightened his jacket, the velvet ring box still clutched tightly. His confident facade had vanished, leaving only the man Sarah had glimpsed earlier, desperate, fearful, and torn. The stranger who had revealed the family secret stepped slightly forward, her eyes narrowed, scanning the doors. She didn't speak, but her silence carried authority and warning. The doors swung open slowly. A tall man stepped inside, his presence commanding immediate attention. Dark suit, sharper features, and eyes that seemed to pierce right through the crowd, assessing, calculating. He didn't smile, didn't nod. He simply surveyed the room and then locked eyes with Sarah and Armand. "Good afternoon," he said smoothly, his voice calm but chilling, like ice sliding over metal. "I believe it's time we had a proper conversation." A murmur ran through the hall. Guests shifted nervously in their seats. Some whispered among themselves, others pulled out phones to capture the moment. Sarah felt a chill travel up her spine. The man's calmness was more terrifying than anger or shouting. It hinted at power, control, and consequences far beyond what anyone in that room could imagine. Armand took a cautious step forward. "Mister," he began, voice tight. The man raised a hand. "Call me Mr. Zahir. I'm here to settle matters that were long overdue." His gaze flicked to the folder of documents the stranger had laid on the table earlier. "I see someone has been spreading stories, revealing truths that are inconvenient for my family." The stranger beside Sarah's side tensed, her eyes flicking to Mr. Zahir with both recognition and caution. "You shouldn't have come here," she said sharply. Mr. Zahir smiled faintly, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "On the contrary, I think this is exactly where I need to be." He turned to Armand, who looked smaller, weaker, and more human than Sarah had ever seen him. "Your father has kept secrets, yes. But your own choices, your decisions to hide, to lie, to protect someone, have consequences." Sarah's mind raced. Every word they spoke layered danger upon danger. She felt the heavy weight of choice pressing down on her, what to do, whom to trust, and how to survive the storm that had suddenly descended upon what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. "Mr. Zahir," Sarah said, finding her voice despite the fear in her chest. "I am not afraid to hear the truth. Whatever you are protecting, whatever threats you speak of, let me understand. I need to know everything if I am to decide what comes next." The man's piercing gaze softened slightly, though it remained calculating. "Very well. But know this, some truths, once revealed, cannot be hidden again. And some choices cannot be undone." He gestured to the documents. "These papers, these photos, they are only the beginning. Armand's family has built a network that touches more lives than you can imagine. Lies, manipulation, financial crimes, some of them would shock even the strongest hearts. And now you, Sarah, have become part of it." Gasps filled the room. Guests murmured, shifting uneasily. Sarah's mother gripped the edge of her chair, Roz's fists clenched tightly at his sides. Even Armand seemed overwhelmed, his face pale, his body rigid. Sarah took a deep breath. Her heart pounded, but her mind sharpened. She had always believed that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was facing the fear and acting anyway. She stepped closer to Mr. Zahir, locking eyes with him. "I am ready," she said, her voice steady. "Tell me everything. No lies, no hiding, no excuses." Mr. Zahir nodded slowly, then began recounting pieces of a story so vast and dark that the hall seemed to shrink around it. Business empires built on manipulation, secret meetings with powerful figures, financial schemes that could ruin entire communities. And all of it tied, directly or indirectly, to Armand's family. Sarah felt her stomach twist with each revelation. Every lie she had tolerated, every small oddity she had noticed in Armand's behavior, suddenly made sense. The cheap ring, the hesitation, the secretive gestures, it was all part of a larger, dangerous world she hadn't known existed. And yet, even as the truth unfolded, Sarah noticed something else. Armand's gaze never wavered from hers. Despite his fear, despite the weight of his family's darkness, there was still a flicker of hope, a silent plea for her understanding. Her mind raced. Could she trust him? Could she navigate this dangerous reality without losing herself? And most importantly, what would happen if she chose to confront the family, expose the secrets, and risk the wrath of people far more powerful than any wedding guest? Then, suddenly, a sharp sound broke the tense silence, a phone ringing. It was Armand's father, calling from the other side of the city. Everyone froze. The stranger, the guests, even Mr. Zahir looked alarmed. The implications were immediate and terrifying. Sarah realized that the drama was far from over. Who else was involved? What was waiting outside the walls of this wedding hall? And could she survive the storm of truths and lies that had just begun to unravel? The sunlight through the stained glass flickered, shadows dancing like warnings on the floor. And Sarah, standing tall in her gown, knew that the moment of decision was no longer hers alone. The storm was coming, and it would leave no one untouched. The phone in Armand's hand seemed heavier than anything else in the room. Every second it rang stretched like an eternity. The hall was deathly quiet, the only sound the faint hum of the air conditioning and the soft rustle of silk gowns as guests shifted nervously. Sarah's heart pounded, her palms damp, and yet her gaze never left Armand. She knew that whatever came next would define not just the wedding, but the future of everyone in that room. Armand hesitated, glancing at the stranger beside Sarah. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, encouraged him silently to answer. With a trembling hand, he swiped to accept the call. His father's deep, commanding voice filled the speaker. "Armand, I see you've involved yourself with a young woman." At such an important moment, quite careless of you, the voice said smoothly, but with an unmistakable edge of authority. "Do you realize the consequences of your actions?" Armand swallowed hard. "Father, I didn't." "You did exactly what I warned you not to do," the voice interrupted. "Now, because of your choices, the wedding hall is compromised. The media, the witnesses, the bride herself, you've risked everything. And you know the rules. Only obedience keeps you safe." Sarah's blood ran cold. The words carried more than authority, they carried threat, danger, and a chilling certainty. She realized in that moment just how trapped Armand was, how far-reaching the shadow of his family truly was. "What does he want?" Sarah whispered to Armand, her voice tight but steady. "What is he demanding?" Armand's face was pale, his jaw tight. "He wants me to call off the wedding quietly. To agree that you never find out the details. To let them control everything. He says if I refuse, there could be consequences for everyone here." A murmur ran through the hall, guests leaning forward, sensing the danger but not yet understanding its full weight. Sarah's mother's hands trembled, and Roz's fists clenched tighter. Even the stranger who had revealed the secrets looked tense, her jaw set as though she were preparing for something drastic. Sarah felt her chest tighten. Her mind raced with the implications. To step back now would mean surrender, not just to Armand's family, but to the fear and lies that had controlled their lives. To step forward would be dangerous, but it was the only way to take control. "Father or no father, threats or no threats," Sarah said firmly, her voice echoing through the hall. "I will not be controlled by fear. I will not let lies decide my future." "Armand," she said, turning to him, "we face this together.
No hiding, no running.
Armand's eyes widened, a mix of fear and admiration flashing across his face.
Sarah, are you sure? You don't understand the danger.
I understand more than you think, she said, her gaze hard.
And I'm not afraid.
There was a tense pause. Then, as if testing their resolve, Mr. Zahir's voice cut through the room.
Bravery alone will not save you.
Every choice has a price, and every action has consequences.
Be careful what you wish for. Sarah's jaw tightened.
She took a step forward, facing the hall full of witnesses. I demand the truth from everyone.
No more secrets.
And I will make sure that anyone who threatens us, whether family or strangers, cannot harm the innocent.
We will not be cowed by fear. Gasps echoed through the hall.
The guests were stunned by her courage, unsure whether to cheer or be terrified by her defiance. Some whispered in awe, others in fear, but all eyes were on Sarah and Armand, waiting to see how the next moment would unfold. Then, in a sudden and shocking move, Armand stood straight, his voice gaining strength.
Father, I refuse to be controlled. I refuse to hide the truth. Sarah is right. No more lies. No more threats.
If anyone wants to destroy us, they will face the consequences.
A collective gasp swept through the hall.
Mr. Zahir's expression hardened, his eyes narrowing.
Bold words, boy. Very bold. But words alone are not enough to escape the consequences. Sarah's mind raced. The danger had multiplied.
She noticed subtle movements among the guests, some shifting anxiously, others reaching for phones. And then, she saw him, the man who had been lingering in the shadows from the beginning. He stepped forward, eyes glinting with a mixture of authority and menace. Very well, he said calmly, his voice carrying across the hall. Since the truth is coming out, let's see how far you're willing to go.
And let's see who really has control here. A hush fell. Guests froze.
Even the stranger beside Sarah straightened, her eyes narrowing in recognition and warning. Sarah realized with a sinking feeling that the wedding hall had just become a stage for forces far larger than any one family, any one bride, or any one groom. Every heartbeat felt louder now, every shadow seemed to move with intent.
Sarah took a deep breath, her mind sharpening.
She could feel the storm approaching, the storm of lies, secrets, and threats that had been brewing for years, and she knew that the next step would determine everything.
The hall felt like it was closing in on everyone.
The air, once scented with roses and perfume, now carried the metallic tang of fear and tension. Guests shifted uneasily in their seats, whispering in low, frantic tones. Every eye was on the shadowy man who had stepped forward, his presence like a blade cutting through the room.
Sarah's pulse thundered in her ears, but she refused to flinch.
The man's gaze swept over the hall with the precision of a predator, finally resting on Armand. You think bravery will protect you, he said, his voice low, smooth, and terrifying. But bravery without strategy is nothing. And the truth you demand may destroy more than you imagine.
Sarah took a deep breath, forcing herself to meet his stare. We've already seen the lies. We've already faced threats. We will not back down now.
Her voice, though calm, carried the weight of conviction. She felt every eye in the hall on her, some filled with admiration, others with fear, as if they were all holding their breath for what would happen next. Armand's hands shook slightly as he stepped closer to Sarah, his voice barely audible.
Sarah, you don't understand.
He's not just a threat, he's dangerous. I understand enough, she said firmly.
I know fear. I know control.
And I will not let it dictate my life or anyone else's in this room. The man's lips curved into a faint, chilling smile. Bold words, he said.
But words alone are not enough.
Then, without warning, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. The hall lights flickered, and the soft music cut off abruptly.
Guests gasped, some backing away in fear.
Sarah's mother clutched her chest, her eyes wide. Even the stranger who had been guiding Sarah stepped forward cautiously, her hand hovering near the folder of documents. This device, the man said, his voice cold, contains proof of everything, proof that could ruin reputations, destroy empires, and end lives. And now, it will all be exposed unless your family complies with our demands.
Sarah's mind raced.
Every instinct screamed to run, to protect herself and the people she loved. But she realized that fleeing would not solve anything. The storm had come, and it was already here in the hall. She had to act, and she had to act now. She stepped forward, her voice steady and loud enough for everyone to hear.
If your plan is to threaten us with fear, you're mistaken.
You underestimate the power of truth when it is wielded with courage. The shadowy man's eyes narrowed. And what do you propose, young lady? He asked, his tone dangerously calm. Sarah's gaze swept over the documents on the table, the evidence of lies, corruption, and secrets that had controlled lives for years. Her mind worked quickly, piecing together a plan in seconds. We expose everything, she said. Every secret. Every lie. Everyone in this room will see the truth, and no one can manipulate it anymore. A murmur ran through the guests.
Some looked horrified, others intrigued. Even Armand blinked in shock.
Sarah, are you sure? He asked, his voice trembling. Yes, she said firmly.
It's the only way.
If we face it together, no one can use fear to control us. The stranger beside Sarah nodded, her eyes sharp. I can help, she said. We need to reveal the documents now, before he can react.
Sarah moved quickly, gathering the scattered papers and photos.
Her hands trembled slightly, but her determination outweighed the fear. As she organized the evidence, she noticed the guests leaning forward, phones raised, their attention captured completely. The hall had transformed from a wedding celebration into a stage for confrontation and revelation. The shadowy man took a cautious step forward. You're playing a dangerous game, he warned.
Do you have any idea what you're about to unleash?
I do, Sarah said.
And I am ready.
With a bold motion, she held the first sheet of documents high, letting the guests glimpse the evidence. A collective gasp filled the hall as the truth began to spread like wildfire.
Faces turned pale, whispers escalated, and some guests even recoiled in disbelief.
The veil of control that had once cloaked Armand's family began to tear, revealing the reality that had been hidden for so long. Armand stepped beside her, finally finding a voice of his own. This is the truth, he said, his voice strong despite the tension.
I will not hide anymore. We will face it together.
The shadowy man's eyes flickered with surprise, then anger.
You dare defy me? Expose the secrets I hold? Sarah's gaze met his, unwavering.
Yes. Because no one should control others through fear.
No one should hide the truth.
For a long moment, the hall was silent, the only sound the rapid beating of hearts. Then, slowly, guests began whispering among themselves, sharing what they had seen, what they had discovered, realizing the magnitude of the revelations. Some nodded subtly at Sarah, admiration and respect in their eyes. Others stared in fear, understanding that power was shifting in ways they could not yet predict.
And in that moment, Sarah realized something important.
Courage was not just standing up in the face of danger, it was taking action that changed everything, even when the stakes were terrifyingly high. The shadowy man took a step back, his lips pressed into a thin line. He realized, perhaps too late, that he had underestimated the resolve of a woman who refused to be controlled. But just as relief began to wash over Sarah, she noticed something that made her heart stop. Another figure, hidden at the edge of the hall, had slipped inside unnoticed. Their expression was calm, almost amused, and in their hand was a device similar to the one the first man had held.
Sarah's pulse spiked again.
The storm was far from over. The hall felt smaller now, like the walls themselves were closing in. Every guest held their breath, eyes wide, as the second figure stepped fully into the light. Unlike the first, this one moved with a deliberate calm, almost theatrical, as though he had been waiting for the exact moment when chaos would reach its peak. A thin smirk played across his lips, and the device in his hand glinted menacingly under the sunlight streaming through the stained glass.
Sarah's pulse surged. She recognized immediately that this was no ordinary intruder.
This was someone who had planned carefully, someone who thrived in tension, someone who wanted control and who would stop at nothing to get it. Ah, the man said, his voice smooth and cold. I see the little lady has begun her performance.
Very impressive, I must say. But theatrics alone will not save you. Guests murmured nervously.
Phones were raised, cameras clicking frantically, recording every second. Sarah could see the panic on their faces, the confusion, the fear that had spread like wildfire through what was supposed to be a joyful celebration. Even Armand, who had finally started to stand tall beside her, felt the weight of this new presence pressing down on him.
Who are you? Sarah demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. What do you want? The intruder's smirk widened.
I am someone who ensures the balance of power remains where it belongs.
And what I want is very simple.
I want to see whether courage or chaos wins tonight.
Sarah's heart raced.
The words were not empty, she could feel the danger in every syllable. Her gaze flicked to the first shadowy man, who now seemed tense, almost on edge. He hadn't expected this development, and the presence of another player had shifted the dynamics entirely.
Armand swallowed hard. Sarah, we need to be careful, he whispered. This is bigger than anything I've ever told you. They're dangerous, and if we make one wrong move.
We won't make a wrong move, Sarah interrupted, stepping forward, her gaze fixed on the new intruder.
We face the truth. We expose it.
And we refuse to be controlled.
The man's eyes glinted with amusement.
Bold words. But I do love a good challenge.
He raised the device slightly, as if testing the room. Now, everyone, let's see how brave you truly are.
Suddenly, the device emitted a low, humming sound.
Lights flickered and the hall's temperature seemed to drop. The guests gasped, some instinctively backing away. Sarah noticed that the devices were not just recording, they were controlling the environment.
Panic rose in the crowd like a wave, but Sarah forced herself to stay focused. She realized that action, not fear, was the only path forward. Her gaze landed on the table with the documents, the evidence of corruption, lies, and deceit. If she could get these into the right hands, expose everything publicly, she might have a chance to neutralize both threats.
Taking a deep breath, she whispered to Armand, "We need to act now. Together."
Armand nodded, his eyes meeting hers with determination.
"What do we do?"
"We draw everyone's attention," Sarah said, her voice rising.
"And we reveal the truth before they can react. The moment is now."
She lifted the first folder high, letting the sunlight illuminate the evidence inside.
Gasps filled the room.
Mr. Zahir and the second intruder froze momentarily, caught off guard by the sudden boldness.
Sarah then made a split-second decision.
She motioned to the guests, urging them to take out their phones and record everything.
"Everyone," she shouted. "Look at this. This is the truth. Do not let them control you with lies or fear." Chaos erupted. Some guests hesitated, unsure what to do, while others obeyed immediately, cameras clicking, flashes blinding. The intruders' calm demeanor faltered as they realized their control was slipping. The second intruder's smirk disappeared, replaced by a flash of anger.
"You dare," he began, but Sarah didn't wait for him to finish. She moved quickly, grabbing the folder and stepping to the center of the hall.
Armand followed, standing protectively beside her. "Now," she shouted.
She opened the documents to show every person in the hall, every lie, every secret.
The evidence spilled out in the open, impossible to ignore.
The first intruder's device was now useless, the information had escaped into the hands of the witnesses.
For a moment, silence fell.
Everyone, including the intruders, froze, realizing the magnitude of what had just happened.
The power dynamics had shifted in seconds.
Sarah had taken control, and for the first time, the intruders were on the defensive. But then, a new sound cut through the tension, a faint beeping.
Sarah's eyes widened. Another device, she realized.
Before anyone could react, a small drone descended from the ceiling, carrying a glowing red light.
Panic surged through the hall once again. Sarah's mind raced. Could they survive this? Could they neutralize the new threat before it was too late? And who had sent this drone? Was it connected to the intruders, Or was there yet another player in this dangerous game? The storm had not ended. It had only grown stronger. And Sarah, standing tall in her gown, knew that the next move would decide everything: life, love, and the fate of everyone in the hall. The faint beeping of the drone filled the hall like a ticking clock, each pulse a reminder that danger had not passed. Guests froze mid-motion, eyes wide, whispering nervously. Some clutched their phones tightly, recording the chaos, while others instinctively moved back toward the walls, as if distance could protect them from the storm that had invaded their celebration. Sarah's heart pounded, her breath sharp and quick. She could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. Every second counted. Every decision mattered. She had already exposed the secrets, shifted the balance of power, and defied the intruders, but now, the danger had evolved into something mechanical, cold, and unpredictable. Armand stepped beside her, his hand trembling slightly as he reached for hers. "Sarah, we need a plan," he said, voice low but urgent. "That drone, it could be carrying something dangerous." Sarah nodded. Her eyes scanned the hall, quickly assessing the situation. She noticed the pattern of its descent, the small shadow it cast against the ceiling, the way it hovered above the tables. Her mind raced, calculating risks. There was no time to panic, only decisive action would save them. "Everyone, stay calm," she shouted, her voice slicing through the tension. "Move back from the center. Keep your distance, and don't touch anything strange. We will handle this." Some guests obeyed immediately, while others hesitated, unsure of what to do. Sarah's gaze flicked to the intruders. The first one, Mr. Zahir, clenched his jaw, realizing that their carefully laid plans were unraveling. The second intruder's expression darkened, the drone seemed to be his last attempt to regain control. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped forward, her resolve hardening. "Armand," she said, "we need to neutralize it. Now." Armand nodded, understanding immediately. He spotted the large floral arrangements near the stage, sturdy, heavy, and perfect for creating a barrier. Together, they moved quickly, positioning the arrangements to limit the drone's movement. Sarah's hands shook slightly, but her determination never wavered. The drone hovered closer, red lights blinking ominously, and then, without warning, it descended sharply toward the guests. A gasp went through the hall, followed by screams as people scrambled. Sarah and Armand acted instinctively. Using the floral arrangements as shields, they diverted the drone's path, pushing it away from the crowd. In the chaos, Sarah noticed something chilling. One of the guests, a family friend she had trusted, was standing unnaturally still, their eyes fixed on the drone with a subtle, almost imperceptible signal. Her stomach tightened. Could it be a betrayal? Her suspicions proved correct in a heartbeat. The guest, who had smiled warmly all afternoon, suddenly pressed a small button hidden in their palm. The drone's trajectory changed instantly, targeting the center of the hall with alarming precision. "Armand!" Sarah shouted. "It's him!" "Stop it!" Armand dove toward the guest, grabbing their arm and twisting it to disarm the device. A small explosion of sparks erupted, and the drone wobbled in the air before crashing into a table, sending documents and glasses scattering. The hall erupted in chaos. Guests screamed, ducked, and scrambled for safety. Sarah's eyes burned with a mix of fear and fury. The betrayal cut deeper than any threat. Someone they trusted had been part of the conspiracy all along. But there was no time to dwell. She had a mission, and she had to finish it. "Everyone, stay back," she shouted. "We're not done yet." With the intruders momentarily distracted and the drone neutralized, Sarah seized the folder of documents, the tangible proof of lies, corruption, and deceit, and held it high. "Everyone," she called out. "This is the truth. Every lie, every secret, every manipulation, they have been controlling us with fear for too long. Witness it now." Guests leaned forward, cameras flashing, phones recording. Gasps and murmurs ran through the hall, spreading like wildfire. Even the intruders froze, realizing their control had slipped irreversibly. The first intruder, Mr. Zahir, clenched his fists. You've ruined everything," he shouted. Sarah's voice rang out, steady and powerful. "No.
You are already trapped by your own lies. Courage and truth win over fear and deception.
And we will not be controlled any longer.
Arman, finally finding his strength, stepped beside her.
We face this together, he said. No more hiding, no more threats.
We take our lives into our own hands.
The second intruder, realizing their plan had failed, tried to escape, but the hall doors had already been secured by alert guests.
Panic flashed across his face, and he knew the power had shifted. Sarah's gaze fell on the betrayer, the friend who had tried to manipulate the situation. Their expression faltered, shame and fear mingling as everyone turned their attention toward them. Your lies end here, Sarah said firmly.
No one can control us anymore.
The hall, once filled with tension and fear, now buzzed with a mixture of shock, relief, and awe.
Guests whispered excitedly, some applauding Sarah's courage, others simply stunned by the unfolding drama.
As the sun set, casting long golden shadows across the hall, Sarah realized the truth: courage, honesty, and quick thinking had saved them.
But the danger was not entirely gone.
Powerful people had been exposed, betrayals revealed, and the world outside the hall would soon react. And yet, for the first time in hours, Sarah felt a sense of control, a sense that the storm could be weathered. She had faced fear head-on, protected those around her, and refused to be manipulated.
The wedding hall, though battered and tense, had survived. But Sarah knew deep down that this was only the beginning. Powerful enemies had been revealed, secrets exposed, and the path forward would be fraught with danger.
The hall was quiet now, but the silence was heavy, thick with the weight of what had just transpired.
Guests lingered uneasily, some whispering in small clusters, others staring at Sarah and Arman with a mix of awe and fear.
The scattered documents on the tables bore witness to the chaos, their edges fluttering in the faint breeze from the open doors. The sunlight streaming through the stained glass painted colorful patterns on the floor, but the vibrant colors could not erase the tension lingering in every corner.
Sarah exhaled slowly, letting herself finally sink into a chair.
Her hands were still trembling, but her mind was sharper than ever. She had faced threats, betrayed friends, and mechanical danger, yet she had stood firm. But she knew the storm outside these walls was only beginning. Powerful people had been exposed, and Arman's family would not let their secrets go unanswered. Arman knelt beside her, his face pale but determined.
Sarah, thank you, he said softly. I don't know what I would have done without you. You saved everyone in this hall. Sarah shook her head. No, Arman. You helped too. Courage is not just mine, it's ours. But this isn't over.
Your family, they're not just dangerous, they're organized, powerful, and relentless. At that moment, the first intruder, Mr. Zahir, spoke again. He had been silent, watching the chaos unfold, and now he stepped forward, his expression a mixture of frustration and grudging respect. You have talent, girl, he said. And I will admit, I underestimated you. But this exposure will not end here. You've disrupted a network that has existed for years. You've made enemies who will come after you. Sarah met his gaze squarely. Let them come. We will face them with truth, courage, and together. Before Mr. Zahir could respond, a voice echoed from the doorway. It was deep, commanding, and unmistakably Arman's father. Arman. You have crossed the line. Arman's father entered the hall, flanked by two assistants who carried folders and devices similar to those the intruders had used. His face was pale but controlled, his eyes burning with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Do you understand what you've done? The embarrassment, the exposure, everything you've risked for this girl? Sarah stood slowly, holding her ground. Father. I mean, sir, she said carefully, we exposed lies and threats. We revealed truth. We protected everyone here from danger. Isn't that more important than appearances? Arman's father's gaze narrowed. Truth? You think this is about truth? You have no idea the power you've unleashed. The business, the influence, the enemies, all of it will come down on you. And on this family. Arman's jaw tightened, and for the first time, he spoke with authority. Father, it's not about fear anymore. It's about integrity. You've hidden too much, controlled too much.
That ends now. Sarah's eyes widened slightly.
This was the side of Armand she had been waiting to see, the man who could stand up to his family, who could face consequences with courage rather than fear. The hall seemed to hold its breath. Guests shifted nervously, unsure if they should intervene, flee, or simply watch. Every eye was on Armand and his father, their confrontation charged with years of unspoken tension. Then, a new sound cut through the moment, a soft notification from one of the phones in the crowd.
Someone had posted live video of the entire wedding chaos online. Within seconds, notifications erupted.
Guests pulled out their phones, checking screens, and the hall erupted again, not with fear, but with stunned realization. The story had gone public. Armand's father's face paled further, his control slipping as the reality of exposure sank in. You've made this public," he whispered, almost to himself.
"Yes," Sarah said firmly. "The truth belongs to everyone, not just a few who think they can control it."
The first intruder, Mr. Zahir, stepped forward one last time. "You've changed the game," he admitted. "But be warned, this network has many layers, and they will respond."
"You've made powerful enemies tonight." Sarah's gaze was steady.
"Then we'll meet them with courage, truth, and unity.
We won't back down." As the hall settled, Sarah noticed something unusual, a small envelope tucked beneath one of the fallen chairs.
She picked it up carefully, opening it to reveal a letter in elegant handwriting. The message was simple but chilling: "You've seen the first layer.
The deeper truths will come.
Be ready."
Sarah's pulse quickened.
This was more than a warning, it was a promise of challenges to come. And she knew, in that moment, that their journey had only just begun. Armand took her hand gently.
"Sarah, whatever comes next, we face it together."
Sarah nodded, her heart both heavy and resolute. Together, she agreed. But deep down, she could not shake the feeling that even greater danger was waiting, lurking beyond the walls of the wedding hall.
Secrets even darker, enemies even more cunning, and a betrayal yet to be revealed were on the horizon. The wedding hall, once alive with music and laughter, had become a place of tension, whispers, and heavy glances. Guests milled around cautiously, their eyes darting towards Sarah and Armand. The exposure had changed everything. No longer was this just a wedding, it had become a battleground of power, lies, and reputation. Armand's father sat rigidly in a corner, flanked by his advisors, his face pale but controlled. The once confident patriarch now radiated tension, his calm demeanor shattered by the public revelation. "Armand," he said, his voice tight, "do you understand the gravity of what you've done? Every contact, every business partner, the fallout will be immense." Armand straightened, his jaw firm. "Father, I understand. But the truth had to be revealed. We can't live in fear and lies any longer." Sarah stepped beside him, her eyes steady. "And we'll face the consequences together. The world knows the truth now, and we'll make sure no one else suffers in silence." The room was tense, but the public exposure had shifted the power dynamic. Guests whispered among themselves, sensing that the tide had turned. Some were still shocked, others curious, but all realized that Sarah's courage had irreversibly altered the landscape. Yet, amid the temporary relief, a new unease settled over Sarah. There were layers she hadn't yet uncovered, shadows she couldn't yet see. That small envelope she had found earlier hinted at deeper truths waiting to be revealed. She couldn't ignore it. Armand noticed her concern. "Sarah, what is it?" She opened the envelope again, unfolding the letter carefully. The handwriting was elegant, deliberate. The message chilled her: "The past is not what you think. What Armand hides will change everything. Prepare yourself." Her eyes widened. "Armand, your past, there's more. This isn't just about your family's businesses, it's about you." Armand's expression darkened, his face pale. He had kept secrets, some to protect her, others to shield himself. Now, the past he had tried to bury was demanding to be revealed. "I wanted to tell you. I couldn't," he admitted, voice low. "But it seems the truth will come out one way or another." Sarah took a deep breath. Then tell me now. No more hiding. No more lies. I need to know everything before it escalates further. Armand hesitated, then nodded. Years ago, before my family's influence grew, I made a choice. A mistake. One that could have hurt someone I loved. My father covered it up, and I lived in his shadow ever since. I thought I could start anew, protect the people I care about, but the past has a way of catching up. Sarah's heart pounded. What kind of mistake? She asked, her voice steady but urgent. Armand's gaze dropped. I was involved, indirectly, in a deal that went wrong. Someone was hurt because of it. I never meant for it to happen, but I've carried the guilt all these years. Sarah processed his words. The man she had grown to trust, the man she had just stood beside in defiance of powerful enemies, had a past that could change everything. But she could see the honesty in his eyes, the pain of someone who had been trapped by circumstance and family control. We can face it, Sarah said finally. Together. The truth is out now, Armand. No more lies. No more shadows. If we face the consequences openly, we can survive this and grow stronger. Armand looked at her, hope flickering in his eyes. You really mean that? I mean it, Sarah said firmly. But we must be careful. The exposure has angered powerful people, and the past, whoever sent that letter, they know more than we do. We have to prepare. Suddenly, the door opened, and one of Armand's father's advisors entered, holding a tablet. Sir, the news has gone viral. Social media is ablaze. The story is trending globally. Reputations are at stake. Your response will be scrutinized. Armand's father's face hardened. Then we must act strategically, he said, turning to Armand. You've unleashed a storm, and now you must navigate it or suffer the consequences. Sarah realized that the wedding, the exposure, and Armand's past were just the beginning. The battle for truth, justice, and safety was only starting. And now, more than ever, they needed a plan, a way to confront the enemies, the betrayals, and the shadows of the past before it was too late. The day after the wedding chaos, the mansion was quiet, almost eerily so. Guests had left, some shaken, some still whispering about the public exposure, and the hall bore the scars of the night before's scattered documents, overturned chairs, and a lingering tension that refused to dissipate. Sarah and Armand sat together in the drawing room, the golden afternoon sunlight casting long shadows across the floor, but neither could relax. Armand's father sat across from them, flanked by his advisors, his face drawn and pale. The viral spread of the wedding scandal had thrown the family into disarray. Financial advisors, lawyers, and social media managers had flooded the mansion with calls and messages, all trying to mitigate the damage. Yet the most pressing matter wasn't the exposure, it was the secret that had been quietly hiding in plain sight, now threatening to explode into the open. Sarah's gaze fell on a small, locked cabinet in the corner of the room. Something about it caught her attention. The lock looked worn, as though it had been opened many times. Her instincts told her that whatever was inside might explain much of the chaos that had unfolded. Armand, she whispered. There's something here. Something your family has been hiding. Armand's eyes darkened. I've suspected it for a long time, but I never dared confront it. My father wouldn't allow it. And if it's true, it could destroy everything. Sarah stood and walked toward the cabinet, her resolve unwavering. Armand followed cautiously, his hand hovering near hers. Whatever is inside, she said softly, we face it together. No more secrets. Armand's father noticed their movement and tensed. That cabinet contains matters of family, of business, that are not yours to uncover, he said sharply, rising from his seat. His voice carried authority, but there was an edge of fear beneath it. Sarah stopped, turning to face him. If what's hidden here caused the threats, the lies, and the danger last night, then it's mine to see. I refuse to be left in the dark any longer. With a trembling hand, Armand produced a small key from his pocket, a key he had taken from his father months ago but had never dared to use. It's time, he said quietly, to know the truth. He slid the key into the lock. The cabinet clicked open, revealing rows of folders, each neatly labeled with dates and names.
Papers, photographs, financial records, evidence of deals, manipulations, and a network of influence that extended far beyond what anyone had imagined.
Sarah's eyes widened.
The folders documented not only the lies and corruption of Armand's family but also connections to people and events that had shaped much of the chaos in the city. There were photographs of clandestine meetings, letters with instructions to cover up scandals, and bank statements showing hidden transactions. Then she saw one folder at the bottom, thicker than the others, sealed with a wax stamp bearing the family crest.
She pulled it out carefully and opened it.
Inside was a set of documents that chilled her to the bone, evidence of a secret Armand had never been told, a plan to control and manipulate powerful figures in ways that were both shocking and illegal. Armand's face turned pale as he realized what she held.
That can't be true," he whispered. That's my father's plan? That's everything he's been hiding from me?"
Sarah looked up at him, her eyes fierce.
"It is true. And now we have a choice.
We can let this destroy us, or we can use it to protect ourselves and expose the truth completely." The room grew silent as Armand's father noticed the folder in Sarah's hands. His eyes narrowed, a mix of anger, fear, and desperation.
You don't understand. That plan, it was necessary. To protect the family, to secure our legacy." "Protect the family?"
Sarah's voice rose, firm and unwavering.
"Or protect your power? Because from what I see, your secrets have put everyone in danger. Your lies have cost trust, safety, and peace. It ends now." Armand's hands trembled as he stepped closer to Sarah.
"What do we do?" he asked.
This could destroy everything, including us."
Sarah held his gaze, determination blazing in her eyes.
"We face it head on. We expose everything before anyone else can use it against us. We take control of the narrative. We do not let fear or secrecy dictate our lives anymore."
Before anyone could respond, a soft chime echoed through the mansion. The intruders from the wedding had already begun their next move. Someone had accessed the viral videos and documents online, and their influence had begun to spread, stirring attention from powerful allies and enemies alike.
Sarah realized the battle was far from over.
The exposure of the wedding was just the beginning. Armand's family's hidden truths, the enemies they had made, and the betrayals yet to come would all converge, and she and Armand would be at the center. The morning after the discovery of the cabinet's secrets, the mansion was alive with a different kind of tension. The sunlight poured through the tall windows, but the warmth did little to ease the chill that lingered in the air. Sarah stood by the balcony, staring out at the sprawling city below, her mind racing with the implications of what she and Armand had uncovered. The viral wedding videos had sparked attention beyond anything they could have imagined. Media outlets were circling, social media exploded with speculation, and messages from unknown sources poured into their phones, some threats, some warnings, some offers of help. The world was watching, and with it came both danger and opportunity. Armand joined her on the balcony, his expression grim. "Sarah, the exposure has reached my family's allies.
They're not happy, and some are already making moves.
We have to be careful about whom we trust."
Sarah nodded. "We'll need allies too. Not everyone is against us. Some want the truth to come out. But we have to act fast before the enemies strike."
Just then, the door opened, and the stranger who had helped Sarah during the wedding stepped in. Her eyes were sharp, calculating.
"We don't have much time," she said. "I've been tracking the intruders and their network. They're planning their next move, and it's closer than you think." Sarah felt a surge of determination. "What do you know?"
The stranger pulled out a tablet, displaying maps, photographs, and messages intercepted from the intruders.
"They're moving to destabilize the family further.
They know what's hidden, and they plan to exploit it.
But there's more, someone inside your circle is working with them." Sarah's stomach dropped.
"Inside?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper.
"Someone we trust?"
The stranger nodded grimly.
"Yes.
Someone close enough to know your routines, your plans, and to manipulate events from within.
If we don't act fast, the damage will be irreversible."
Armand's eyes widened, and his face paled.
Who is it?" he asked. Sarah's gaze swept the room. "I don't know yet. But we'll find out."
She clenched her fists, her mind racing through the people in their inner circle. Friends, advisors, family members, one of them had betrayed their trust. The thought was chilling, but she refused to let fear paralyze her. As they planned their next steps, a message pinged on Armand's phone. It was from an unknown number, and the text was simple: "We know what you've uncovered. Stop, or there will be consequences."
Sarah's jaw tightened. "They're watching. They know we're moving."
The stranger leaned closer.
"That's why we need to strike first.
Gather proof of the betrayal, expose it, and use the cabinet's secrets to protect yourselves. The intruders can't manipulate what's already public, but the internal threat is immediate."
Armand nodded. "Then we need a plan. Carefully, strategically. One wrong move, and they could destroy everything." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "We can't wait for them to act. We have to anticipate their moves, outsmart them, and reveal the truth before they strike.
We need allies we can trust, information we can act on, and courage more than ever before." Just as they began mapping out their strategy, the sound of a familiar voice echoed from the hallway. It was a voice they hadn't expected.
"Planning without me, are you?"
Sarah turned sharply, and her heart skipped a beat. Standing there, casually leaning against the doorframe, was someone she had trusted completely, someone she had considered a friend and confidant. The person's expression was calm, almost amused, but Sarah could sense the danger radiating from them. A cold realization struck her. The betrayal was closer than she had imagined. Not a distant enemy, not an unknown intruder, but someone who had been part of their world, part of their plans, and now stood ready to manipulate everything from within.
Sarah's mind raced. Could she confront them without endangering everyone else? Could they expose the traitor before more damage was done?
And most importantly, who in their circle could still be trusted when deception had reached the very heart of their lives? The room seemed to shrink around Sarah as she stared at the figure standing in the doorway.
Every instinct screamed caution, every muscle in her body tensed.
The calmness in the person's eyes, the faint smile playing across their lips, it was a mask, but Sarah knew instinctively that danger hid behind it. "You shouldn't have ignored my messages," the insider said smoothly.
"I warned you not to dig too deep.
And now, everything is unraveling." Sarah's heart pounded. She had known someone was betraying them, but seeing it, feeling it, brought a wave of disbelief and anger.
"Why?" she demanded.
"Why betray us?
Why put everyone at risk?"
The insider's smile widened. "Power, control, opportunity, and survival.
Don't be naive, Sarah. In this world, loyalty is a luxury.
People like you and Armand, you stand in the way of those who want more, who will do anything to maintain influence." Armand stepped forward, placing himself between Sarah and the insider. "We trusted you," he said, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief.
"And you've been working with them all along? After everything?"
The insider shrugged, almost casually.
"I didn't work for them. I worked for the situation. For me.
And if you think exposing secrets will save you, you're mistaken.
The network is stronger than you realize.
You've stirred something that cannot be contained."
Sarah's mind raced.
She had to act fast, not just to protect herself and Armand, but to stop the insider from sabotaging everything. "Then tell us what you want," she said, her voice steady despite the fear curling in her stomach.
"If you want leverage, power, or protection,
we'll find another way, but you're risking everyone here by siding with them." The insider's eyes glinted.
"I want the truth.
But the truth? I want it to be mine to control. You've taken too much, revealed too much, and now the consequences will fall on all of you." Before Sarah could respond, a sudden explosion rocked the mansion. The windows rattled, and dust fell from the ceiling.
Guests screamed, scrambling for cover. The intruders had made their first move of retaliation, striking swiftly and violently.
Armand grabbed Sarah's hand, pulling her behind a large table for cover. "They're attacking," he shouted.
We need to protect everyone and get the evidence out.
Sarah peeked over the edge of the table, her eyes scanning the chaos. Security guards were trying to contain the intruders' agents, but more alarms blared from outside, vehicles crashing, people shouting, and the unmistakable sound of destruction spreading across the property. Her gaze returned to the insider, who had not moved. "You did this," Sarah said, voice shaking with anger.
"This is your doing." The insider's expression was unreadable. "I warned you," they said quietly. "Now face the consequences of your choices."
Sarah realized that this was more than just a battle for exposure, it was a war for control, for survival, and for the future.
Every second counted. Every move had to be precise.
If they failed now, the intruders, the insider, and the chaos would destroy everything and everyone in their path. Armand squeezed her hand, his eyes fierce.
"We can't wait. We have to act. Now." Sarah nodded, her heart racing. "We expose everything, confront the insider, and stop the intruders. No hesitation. Every second we delay gives them power."
From the corner of the room, a security monitor flickered to life, showing live feeds from the mansion's exterior. Vehicles surrounded the property, some armored, some clearly designed for attack. The intruders had mobilized quickly, and their first wave had already begun.
Sarah clenched her fists.
The betrayal, the attack, the exposure, it all converged into a single truth: they were now in the eye of the storm. And the decisions they made in the next moments would determine not just the fate of the family, but of everyone who had trusted them. The mansion was in chaos. Smoke curled from broken windows, alarms blared, and the frantic shouts of guards and guests echoed through the hallways. Sarah ducked behind a grand pillar with Armand, her pulse hammering in her ears. The intruders' first wave had hit harder than she had anticipated, and every second felt like a race against inevitable disaster. Through the shattered windows, she could see armored vehicles surrounding the property, their lights cutting through the fading afternoon sun. Men in tactical gear moved with precision, coordinated and ruthless. It was clear that the intruders weren't just opportunists, they were trained, organized, and ready to take everything by force. Armand's hand tightened around hers.
"Sarah, we need a plan. Fast." Sarah's mind raced. Every instinct told her that brute force alone wouldn't save them.
They needed leverage, a way to shift the balance before the attackers gained full control. Then her eyes fell on the cabinet they had opened earlier, the rows of folders, the secret documents, the evidence of hidden operations and corruption. A spark of hope ignited. "Armand," she whispered urgently, "the cabinet, the secrets.
We can use them. If we broadcast this information, we take away their advantage. We expose their network and force them into a defensive position." Armand frowned. "But the intruders, they'll try to stop us."
"They won't let us broadcast it so easily."
Sarah nodded, determination blazing.
"Then we need a diversion. Something that gives us just enough time to release the evidence to the public."
"And I know just the way."
They moved cautiously toward the cabinet room, staying in the shadows. Smoke from the broken windows filled the corridors, and the sound of approaching footsteps reminded them how little time they had.
The insider was still with them somewhere in the mansion, and Sarah couldn't risk a surprise attack.
As they reached the cabinet, Sarah quickly gathered the folders and prepared her phone and laptop to upload the information. But then, she froze. A small, metallic glint on one of the shelves caught her eye, a device she hadn't noticed before. She picked it up carefully and realized its potential. It was a high-powered signal jammer, one that could temporarily disable communications and electronic devices in the immediate area.
If used correctly, it could disrupt the intruders' coordination, giving Sarah and Armand a critical window to act.
"This could be our hidden advantage," she whispered to Armand. "If we time it right, we can neutralize their technology long enough to broadcast everything."
Armand's eyes widened. "That's risky, but it might be our only chance." Sarah nodded. "We don't have a choice. It's now or never."
Taking a deep breath, she activated the device, feeling the hum of energy ripple through her fingertips.
Across the mansion, alarms began to falter, lights flickered, and the intruders' communications went silent.
Confusion spread among their ranks as they struggled to regain control. Seizing the moment, Sarah and Armand moved quickly to the main hall, where the guests had gathered for safety.
"Everyone!" Sarah shouted. "We have the truth. It's time for everyone to see what's been hidden."
She and Armand began distributing phones and laptops, guiding people to live stream the documents, photos, and records they had uncovered. The hall buzzed with urgency and determination as guests helped share the evidence with the world, the intruder's advantage slipping further with every second. From the corner of the room, Sarah caught sight of the insider, their calm mask faltering as panic flickered across their face.
How?" they stammered, realizing their carefully orchestrated plan was unraveling. Sarah met their gaze steadily.
The truth is always stronger than fear, lies, or manipulation.
And we're not backing down. Outside, the intruders regrouped, but the jammer continued to disrupt their devices, throwing their coordination into chaos. Vehicles stalled, radios went silent, and their strategic advantage collapsed under the weight of Sarah and Armand's bold action. For the first time since the attack began, Sarah felt a surge of hope. They had shifted the balance, gained control, and struck a decisive blow against their enemies. Yet, even as relief flickered in her chest, she knew the danger wasn't over. The intruders were powerful, the insider was still a threat, and this victory, though significant, was just one step in a much larger battle. The mansion, though momentarily under their control, was far from safe. Sarah and Armand had managed to disrupt the intruders' first wave, but the taste of victory was fleeting. Outside, engines roared, alarms blared faintly through the disrupted signals, and the intruders were regrouping, calculating their next strike. Every second of hesitation could cost them everything. Sarah's hands were still trembling as she shut down the signal jammer. "We can't rely on that forever," she said. "They'll adapt. They'll come back stronger." Armand nodded, eyes scanning the windows for movement. "We need a safe position, somewhere they can't corner us." Before they could move, the insider stepped forward, their expression unusually calm. "You're right," they said. "And I can help you. I've seen their plans, their weaknesses. But we don't have much time." Sarah froze. The insider had been their greatest threat, the one who had betrayed them, but now, there was a flicker of truth in their eyes. Could they really be trusted? Or was this another layer of manipulation? "Why should we trust you now?" Sarah demanded, her voice sharp. "After everything, how do we know this isn't a trap?" The insider met her gaze steadily. "Because if you fail, we all die. I have no choice but to help you survive. The intruders are ruthless, they won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who stands in their way. And right now, standing with you is the only way I survive too." Armand studied the insider carefully, weighing the possibilities. "Okay," he said finally. "We work together, but one wrong move, and we act against you." The insider nodded. "Agreed." Just as they began planning their next move, a sudden explosion shook the mansion. Windows shattered, dust filled the air, and the sound of rushing water and fire alarms erupted simultaneously. The intruders had deployed a coordinated attack, using both fire and chemical smoke to force everyone out into the open. Sarah grabbed Armand's hand. "They're trying to trap us," she shouted. "We need to move now." The trio, Sarah, Armand, and the insider, darted through the hallways, ducking behind furniture and shielding themselves from debris. The intruders' assault was precise, calculated to lead them into a single corridor where they could be cornered. Sarah's heart raced. She realized the intruders weren't just after exposure, they wanted to eliminate the threat entirely. They had studied the mansion, studied the people inside, and set a trap designed to leave no survivors. "Here," the insider shouted, pointing toward a hidden staircase leading to the basement. "This will take us to a secure area." "But it's risky, the intruders might anticipate it." Sarah hesitated for a split second, then nodded. "We have no choice. Let's go." They descended quickly, the steps narrow and dimly lit. Smoke from the upper floors crept downward, stinging their eyes. Sarah could hear the intruders' shouts echoing through the hallways above. The tension was suffocating, and every second felt like a heartbeat away from disaster. As they reached the basement, Sarah noticed a reinforced door at the end of the corridor. "This must be the safe room," she whispered. They rushed inside, slamming the door behind them and locking it.
For a moment, silence fell, broken only by their heavy breaths.
Sarah's gaze fell on the insider.
Can we trust you?" she asked again, quietly this time.
The insider's expression softened, almost vulnerable.
"Yes," they said.
"This isn't about loyalty to anyone but survival. And right now, survival means standing with you."
Sarah studied them, sensing the sincerity but aware of the fragility of trust in this situation. She turned to Armand.
"We need to prepare.
They'll come for us again, and this time, they'll be smarter.
We need a plan,
weapons, everything we can use to defend ourselves."
Armand nodded grimly.
"We'll do whatever it takes.
For us, for everyone in the mansion."
As they organized their limited resources, a sudden alert flashed on the insider's tablet. The intruders had deployed drones, more sophisticated than before, scanning the mansion, looking for the safe room.
Sarah's stomach dropped. "They're coming. They'll find us soon." The insider's hands flew over the tablet.
"I can disable some of them, but only temporarily.
We need to act fast."
Sarah swallowed hard, her mind racing.
The intruders' retaliation was escalating, and every second counted.
If they didn't find a way to fight back and expose their enemies, they would be trapped, possibly eliminated, inside their own home.
The basement safe room, though fortified, shuddered as a faint hum grew louder.
Sarah pressed her back against the wall, her pulse racing. The intruders' drones had found them, and their sophisticated scanning technology was probing every corner. "They're close," the insider said, hands flying over the tablet to attempt another signal disruption.
"This is the most advanced wave they've sent.
It won't be long before they breach the door."
Sarah's mind raced.
The evidence they had exposed, the secrets revealed, and the insider's reluctant alliance, all of it could unravel in minutes if they didn't act. She turned to Armand. "We have to prepare. Whatever happens, we defend this room and our truth." Armand nodded, grabbing a heavy metal rod from the supply corner.
"We'll hold them off as long as we can."
"But Sarah, these drones, they're not just tools.
Someone is controlling them remotely, watching us in real time." Sarah's stomach tightened.
"Then whoever is behind this knows exactly what we're doing." Suddenly, a sharp metallic clang echoed through the room. The door was under attack.
Sparks flew as drones collided with the reinforced entrance, their small claws designed to pry and hack.
The hum of their engines grew deafening.
"Get down!" Sarah shouted as the first drone breached the doorway, spinning wildly, its sensors glowing red.
She swung the metal rod, knocking it aside just as it would have targeted them with an electrical discharge. Armand followed her lead, striking another drone with precise force, sending it skidding across the concrete floor. Amid the chaos, the insider stepped forward, their fingers flying over the tablet. "I can disable them temporarily, but you have to buy me enough time.
Block the doorway, hold them off."
Sarah and Armand exchanged a glance, determination flashing in their eyes.
"We can do this," Sarah said. "Together."
They formed a barricade with furniture, swinging rods and makeshift shields to block the drone's advance. Sparks flew, smoke filled the air, and the sound of metal scraping against concrete echoed through the basement. Every strike carried weight, every move a life or death decision. Then, amid the chaos, Sarah noticed something that made her blood run cold, a familiar symbol on the drone's chassis. It was not the intruder's usual mark, but something more personal, the emblem of Armand's father's private security division. "Armand, these drones," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling.
"They're not just intruders' tech, they're from your father's organization." Armand's face went pale. What are you saying?"
Sarah pointed at the devices.
"The attack isn't just external. Someone in your family, someone close, is orchestrating this. They're using the intruders as a cover, manipulating both sides." Armand's jaw tightened.
The revelation hit him like a punch to the chest.
It can't be. Father?"
Before he could finish, the insider interrupted.
It's true. And if you don't stop him now, everything, your family, the mansion, all of it, will be destroyed. He's more ruthless than the intruders ever were. Sarah's heart pounded. Not only were they facing a deadly assault, but betrayal had penetrated deeper than they had imagined. Every action, every strategy, now had to consider an enemy hiding in plain sight, someone with intimate knowledge of their strengths, weaknesses, and secrets. Another drone smashed through the barricade, sparks flying, and Sarah and Armand struck in unison to push it back. The sound of their struggle echoed off the walls, adrenaline heightening their senses. They realized that survival depended on understanding the enemy's plan faster than the enemy could act. "We need a counterstrike," Sarah said through gritted teeth, adrenaline sharpening her focus. "We used the documents, the insiders' intel, and their own network against them. We expose the betrayal, take control, and force them to retreat." Armand nodded, determination hardening his features. "Then we do it now. No hesitation. Every second we delay, they gain the advantage." Sarah's gaze swept the room, landing on the insider. "Are you truly with us?" she asked quietly. The insider met her eyes, voice firm. "I've survived by adapting. And now, I fight with you. We expose the truth before it's too late." The drones advanced again, but Sarah and Armand's resolve had crystallized. With the insider's guidance, they prepared a daring counterattack, combining technology, strategy, and sheer courage. The basement became the stage for a pivotal confrontation, a battle that would determine not only their survival but the future of everyone involved. The basement trembled with chaos. Smoke swirled around Sarah and Armand as sparks flew from shattered drones, the hum of disrupted technology echoing in the confined space. Every second counted, every movement meant survival or disaster. The intruders had expected compliance, they hadn't anticipated defiance, strategy, and sheer courage. Sarah's eyes scanned the room, adrenaline sharpening her focus. "Armand," she said urgently, "we use the evidence. Their own network is our weapon. Expose everything and make them vulnerable." Armand nodded, determination flashing in his eyes. "We do it now. No hesitation." The insider moved swiftly to the tablet, working furiously to override the drone's programming. "I can redirect them, but only for a short window," they warned. "Once we expose the network, their control collapses, but we have to act fast." Sarah grabbed the first laptop, streaming folders of evidence to social media and encrypted networks. Photos, documents, and records revealed the intruders' plans, connections, and the shocking betrayal from within Armand's own family. Guests and staff, who had been hiding in corners of the basement, joined in, uploading footage and amplifying the exposure. The drones, disoriented and partially disabled, swarmed blindly around the basement. Sparks flew as metal limbs struck walls, and the hum of electricity became deafening. The intruders' advantage had crumbled momentarily, but Sarah knew this was only the first step. Then, a voice boomed through the basement speakers, chilling in its calm authority. "So, you've discovered the truth. Impressive. But it won't save you." Sarah froze. The voice was unmistakable, it belonged to Armand's father. The man who had always maintained control, who had hidden secrets behind walls of power, was not just orchestrating events, he had been manipulating everything from the shadows. "Father," Armand's voice was a mixture of shock, anger, and disbelief. "It was you, all along?" "Yes," his father admitted smoothly, almost proudly. "Every move, every plan, every obstacle, you think the intruders acted independently?" "They were my tools. Every crisis, every chaos, they were meant to test loyalty, control power, and teach you lessons. You failed to see the bigger picture until now." Sarah's jaw tightened. This isn't control. It's manipulation. It's betrayal. Innocent people are in danger because of your obsession with power." His expression hardened. "Sacrifices must be made for legacy. For the family. You have exposed weaknesses, and now you must face the consequences." Armand's hands clenched into fists. "No. We won't let you hurt anyone else. Not now. Not ever." Sarah and Armand exchanged a glance,
their silent agreement clear, they had to act decisively. With the insider's guidance, they moved to disable the remaining drones, using their knowledge of the mansion's infrastructure and the devices hidden within the safe room. Sparks flew as drones collided and fell, the hum of electricity fading into silence. Then, they confronted the mastermind directly. Armand stepped forward, holding the evidence in his hand. "This is your legacy now," he said firmly. "Your control, your manipulation, it's exposed. The world sees the truth. You've lost." For a moment, his father's composure faltered. The calm mask cracked, revealing shock and anger intertwined. You dare," he hissed. Sarah moved beside Armand, her voice unwavering. "We dare because it's right. Power isn't worth more than truth. Lies aren't worth more than life." Outside the mansion, law enforcement, alerted by the viral evidence, began mobilizing. Social media and news networks carried every revelation in real time. The intruder's network crumbled, and Armand's father's allies hesitated, unsure whether to support a man whose secrets had been fully exposed. Armand's father realized the tide had turned. The evidence, the exposure, and the courage of Sarah and Armand had dismantled his carefully constructed world. He sank into a chair, defeated but defiant. Sarah exhaled slowly, her body trembling from adrenaline, fear, and relief. "It's over," she whispered. "At least for now." Armand placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes softening. "We survived. Together." Yet, even as relief washed over them, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was only a step in a larger journey. Secrets still lingered, consequences still waited, and the shadows of betrayal would take time to fully dissipate. But in this moment, truth and courage had prevailed. The mansion, once a symbol of power and opulence, was now quiet. The echoes of chaos lingered faintly in the halls, broken furniture, shattered glass, and scorched walls serving as silent witnesses to the storm that had passed. Outside, police vehicles and media crews swarmed the property, documenting the fallout and ensuring that justice would be served. Sarah stepped onto the balcony, breathing in the crisp evening air. Her mind was still racing, the adrenaline of the last few days making it hard to think clearly. Armand joined her, his expression a mix of exhaustion and relief. "It's finally over," he said softly, though his eyes held the weight of what had just transpired. The intruders, the betrayal, all of it. Sarah nodded, though she couldn't shake the unease lingering in her chest. "It's over for now. But there's still so much to rebuild. Your family, your life, everything has changed." Inside, law enforcement officers were questioning Armand's father and the remaining family members. The exposure had left no room for evasion. Secrets that had once been hidden behind walls of wealth and influence were now public knowledge. The consequences were inevitable. Armand's father, once so commanding and untouchable, now sat quietly in the corner of the room, surrounded by officers. His expression was a mixture of defiance and resignation. Sarah felt a pang of pity, but also a deep satisfaction that truth had finally triumphed. As they moved through the mansion, ensuring that everyone was safe, Sarah discovered something unexpected. Tucked away in a drawer in the cabinet room was a small envelope addressed to her in delicate handwriting. She opened it carefully, unfolding a letter that made her heart skip a beat. "Sarah, if you are reading this, it means the storm has passed. But there is one truth you must know about Armand, about you, and about your future together. Trust, love, and courage will be your guiding light. You are more connected to him than you realize. Seek the answers in the place where it all began." Sarah's eyes widened. "What does this mean?" she whispered, turning to Armand. He looked at her, puzzled and concerned. "What is it? What does it say?" She hesitated, the letter trembling in her hands. "I don't know entirely, but it hints at something important. Something personal between us. Something I need to understand before we can truly move forward." Armand took her hand gently. "Then we'll figure it out. Together. No more secrets, no more shadows." Outside, the city had begun to return to normal, but Sarah knew that their lives would never be the same. The exposure, the betrayal, and the danger had changed them both. Yet in that change lay the possibility of a future built on trust, love, and courage. As they walked through the quiet halls of the mansion, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had survived the storm, exposed the truth, and confronted betrayal head-on. Now, the challenge was to rebuild, to uncover the personal secrets hinted at in the letter, and to embrace the future that awaited them together. The mansion was quieter now, but tension still lingered in every shadowed corner. Sarah sat at the large oak table in the cabinet room, the envelope clutched tightly in her hands. Armand was by her side, supportive yet anxious, as they tried to decipher the cryptic message. "The letter, it says something about where it all began," Sarah whispered. "Do you have any idea what that means?" Armand thought for a moment, brows furrowed. "Where it all began, could it be referring to our first meeting? Or perhaps the origins of my family's secrets?" Sarah nodded slowly. "Maybe both. There's something here, a truth that could change everything for us." Determined to uncover the hidden message, they began retracing events, revisiting old family records, letters, and photographs. The deeper they dug, the more they realized that Armand's family history was entwined with hers in ways neither of them had imagined. Finally, behind a false panel in the cabinet room, Sarah discovered a small box. Inside were photographs of Armand's family alongside her own, taken decades ago. There were letters, too, revealing that her family had once been close allies, even confidants, of Armand's father. The revelation hit Sarah like a tidal wave. Their family's fates had been intertwined long before she and Armand had met. She turned to Armand, her voice shaking with emotion. "Our families, we've been connected all along. This isn't just about the wedding, the betrayal, or the intruders. There's history here that nobody told us." Armand's eyes widened as he scanned the documents. This explains so much. The influence, the secrecy, the strategies, it's all rooted in the past. But why hide it from us? Sarah's thoughts raced. Perhaps to protect us, or to control us. But now we know. And knowing means we can finally make our own choices, without the shadows of the past guiding us. Meanwhile, Armand's father had been observing them quietly from a distance. His eyes were heavy with the weight of defeat, but there was also an unmistakable flicker of pride. He approached, his steps slow and deliberate. "You've uncovered everything," he said quietly, voice softer than Sarah had ever heard from him. "I intended to control you both, to guide you through my plans, but you've proven stronger, smarter, and braver than I expected." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Father, your control has caused so much pain. The lies, the betrayal, the chaos, it doesn't have to continue. You can make amends. You can let go." He sighed deeply, a mixture of regret and resignation. "You're right. I was blinded by power, by legacy. But you've shown me the way forward. Perhaps it's time for change." Armand stepped forward, placing a hand on his father's shoulder. "It's time to rebuild, together, honestly. No more secrets, no more manipulation." Sarah felt a surge of relief, knowing that truth, courage, and determination had finally overcome the shadows of the past. And yet, even in this moment of reconciliation, a small part of her heart fluttered with anticipation for the life she and Armand could now create, free from deception, free from fear, and full of possibilities. The mansion, once a battlefield of chaos, secrets, and betrayal, now hummed with a sense of cautious calm. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating dust particles that danced in the warm air. Outside, the media had documented the truth, law enforcement had ensured accountability, and the city had begun to absorb the shockwaves of the revelations. Sarah stood with Armand on the balcony, looking out at the city below. The danger was over, the intruders' network dismantled, and Armand's father, though humbled, was beginning to confront the consequences of his actions. The weight of the past weeks pressed on them, but a new sense of clarity and hope had emerged. "Can you believe it's finally done?" Armand asked softly, squeezing Sarah's hand. "The intruders, the betrayal, everything we feared has been faced." Sarah nodded, a tired but genuine smile crossing her face. "Yes. But more importantly, we've faced it together. And we've learned that truth, courage, and love, they're stronger than fear, manipulation, or secrecy. Inside the mansion, Armand's father had agreed to cooperate fully with authorities, acknowledging his past mistakes and allowing the evidence to guide the legal process. His admission and transparency marked a turning point not only for his family but also for the lives affected by his previous decisions. Sarah and Armand returned to the cabinet room, where the folders of secrets, letters, and photographs had been carefully organized for law enforcement and public record. Sarah picked up the letter she had discovered earlier, reading it one more time. Its words about trust, courage, and the intertwined histories of their families now seemed prophetic. "I understand it now," she said softly. "Our family's pasts shape this, but they won't define our future. We get to choose our own path." Armand smiled, his eyes reflecting relief, love, and renewed determination. "Then let's choose it together. No more shadows. No more secrets. Just honesty and love." The insider, who had guided them through the chaos and revealed their true loyalty, stood quietly nearby. "You've both proven that courage and intelligence can overcome even the most powerful deception," they said. "The future is yours to shape. Don't waste it." As the mansion began to be restored, Sarah and Armand met with family members and staff, helping them process the events, mend relationships, and build trust. The experience had left scars, but it had also fostered resilience, understanding, and a shared commitment to a better, honest life. In the following weeks, the city gradually returned to normal. The viral videos, once a source of scandal, became a testament to courage, transparency, and the power of facing the truth. Armand's father, though humbled, began efforts to make amends, proving that even those who had caused pain could seek redemption when guided by accountability and conscience. One evening, as Sarah and Armand stood on the balcony watching the sunset, Sarah finally spoke her thoughts aloud. "We've survived the storm, uncovered the truth, and exposed the deception. But the real lesson is this: no matter how deep the secrets, no matter how powerful the lies, courage and honesty can always prevail." Armand nodded, pulling her close. "And together, we'll build a future that honors that truth." As the last rays of sunlight bathed the city in golden light, Sarah felt a profound sense of closure and hope. The journey had been filled with danger, betrayal, and revelation, but it had also revealed the strength of love, the importance of trust, and the power of confronting the truth, no matter how difficult. The mansion, once a symbol of secrets and control, now stood as a place of new beginnings. And for Sarah and Armand, the storm had passed, leaving behind a foundation of honesty, resilience, and the promise of a future built not on deception, but on courage, love, and shared strength. The moral was clear: truths, no matter how hidden, will always find their way to light. And those brave enough to face them with courage and integrity will find not only survival but a life of purpose, connection, and hope.